Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining the talk today. My name is Lyndsey Eksili, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about finding your Muslim identity as people, as youth, as teenagers, as young adults, as adults. In America, we face some challenges, I think, that not all people of different ethnicities might face. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those. I'm going to talk about how we can overcome them together. And then at the end, I will be able to answer some questions if you have them. More than happy to help. A little bit about myself. I am an American Muslim. My family is also American Muslims, and I grew up in the Midwest. I am currently working as a school principal. My professional life has always been in education, and so that kind of was the way that I was able to find my own identity. As you can see, the title of my presentation is Finding Your Muslim Identity, but it says Finding Yourself by Helping Others. And so as we go through the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about how education helped me be able to find my own identity through helping others. And I hope that you're able to take something from it that might be able to help you as well. Perhaps you will be able to share your own stories with me later privately. I would love that. I would love to hear what everybody else does and the different things that have helped them throughout their lives as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Again, thank you so much for joining. And let's talk about American Muslims. So, as you may or may not know, American Muslims are one of the fastest growing segments of the U.S. population. Back in 2004, they projected that American Muslims would be the largest religious minority subgroup in the U.S. Within the next decade. So this underscores really the importance of a need to understand the developmental challenges that we as American Muslims face. There are right now a total of, well, this is as of 2017, 3.45 million Muslims in the United States, comprising about 1.1% of the total U.S. population. But interestingly enough, American Muslims are one of the most racially diverse religious groups in the U.S., split 25% Black, 24% white, 18% Asian, 18% Arab, 7% mixed, and 5% Hispanic. So what does this mean for American Muslims as a whole? Why is this important? When you think about the United States, we know that America is a big melting pot. And we know that as Americans, we are introduced to many different cultures and many different ethnicities, all kind of within the same atmosphere, whether we're talking about food and culture, or we're talking about family ties and family relationships, or we're talking about the importance of education, or many different things. When you think about something that is so diverse, it's hard to say, oh, okay, this is the one place that all of these people fit, and this is exactly how they should be, this is how they should look, this is how they should pray, this is how they should worship. And when you can't do that for America. Very similarly, we can't do that for American Muslims. There are many things that come into what make us whole. So we have Turkish Muslims, we have Turkic Muslims, we have Bosnian Muslims, we have Arab Muslims, we have African Muslims, we have African American Muslims, we have people from all over the country, all over the world, and that's a wonderful thing. But that can be really hard for us, especially even for me when I was growing up, to find your identity and say, oh, okay, so these are the people that I fit with, whether we're struggling to fit with the culture here, which can be difficult sometimes, or we're struggling with trying to get people to understand, like, hey, I might not, eat pork, but I can still go sit at a restaurant with you and I can find something to eat. And people have a hard time creating a balance between being an American Muslim and then being part of the American society. And so the fact that we're as diverse as we are as American Muslims just makes that much more difficult, but it doesn't make anything impossible. And so I hope that you'll stick around so we can talk a little bit about developing our own identities as American Muslims. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the psychological side of things first, before we start talking about religion as well, because the two have to kind of come together. But let's start with this. Let's talk about developing our identities. So several critical life experiences are associated with youth's identity development, including developing self-reliance, achieving life goals, and the capacity to successfully navigate life crises. Religion can serve as an enhancing experience for adolescent youth through its ability to provide answers to complex issues of existence and to promote feelings of importance and purpose in life. So let's unpack these two statements for a moment. When we talk about your identity, right? So we're talking about what makes you who you are. We're talking about how you set and then achieve your life goals. And we're talking about how you're able to navigate crises that happen. And so these three things on their own, without any sort of foundation, without any sort of help, could be really difficult to overcome. If you think about somebody who loses a person who's really close to them, that can be devastating in so many ways. Devastating to the point where you start to lose your sense of worth, your sense of value. You start to question, right, why things are happening to you and not to the person next to you. Oh, I've been working so hard my entire life to, be a good Muslim and pray 5 times a day, and I fast every Ramadan, and I treat my family members good, and I do all these things, but this bad thing still happened to me. Why didn't it happen to Joe down the street, but it happened to me? What did I do wrong? And so these are questions that everybody has. I think they're very normal questions. The important thing in this comes to, what are we developing within ourselves to provide a foundation for us to be able to give ourselves answers to those very important and difficult questions? What are we able to prepare ourselves with beforehand so that when we are faced with these life crises, it doesn't become a reason for us to just leave everything completely? And this is really important because laying this type of foundation, not only is it going to give you a feeling of importance and a purpose in your life, but it's going to give you the strength that you need to overcome the problems that you're going to have later. How? We're going to talk about exactly the different parts of the different pieces of advice, let's say, that I took from some of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we'll talk about that. But let's take a minute and let's talk about the challenges that are present specifically for American Muslim youth. These aren't all of them, of course. They're just a few, but I think that they kind of summarize all of the problems that we might see or the challenges that we might see. So the very first thing is that there's a developmental challenge identified for many American Muslim youth who are growing up in an important historical moment during which they may struggle to integrate or allow their identities as both American and Muslim to coexist in non-conflicting ways. So what does that mean? It's kind of what I was talking about before. How can we balance being Muslims and still being part of the American culture and have them live together without challenging one another? So how can I be a practicing Muslim, but be in life, integrated in life on a daily basis, at school, in my job, with my friends, with my family? How can I do this? And this is something that is specific for our youth today. For example, through their religious identity, their religious identity may be important, American Muslim youth can also face greater discrimination and isolation from American culture because of their religious affiliation. So, we're already we can be stigmatized just for being Muslim when it doesn't mesh with the culture. However, research on American Muslim youth suggests that the process of hyphenating selves describes the struggle to join identities. Muslim and American become Muslim American. Turkish American become Turkish American. Asian American, right? There's so many you can talk about. But usually in the past, these identities have been separated, right? So for a really long time, you were just American, right? So you couldn't be American and Muslim. You were just American or you were just Muslim. You were kind of othered in these different groups. And research has found that as youth get used to the idea that you can actually hyphenate yourself, right? You can be American and you can be Muslim at the same time. It's actually helped this struggle of balancing the two. It's helped it become a more realistic idea, a more realistic goal, something that is really able to happen to us as a whole. And so I want to frame now these challenges, right, that we face. How can I balance being a practicing Muslim with my identity as an American Muslim? Or how can somebody whose family perhaps immigrated here from another country, how can they balance being, from a different culture, plus you were born here in America and you're Muslim? You're going to have struggles that I didn't have, and you're going to have your own set of struggles that are going to be kind of difficult to overcome. But again, right, through God, nothing is impossible. But we have to take certain steps. We have to tie our camels first, right? So let's talk about some advice that I found helpful for me from the companions, from the Sahaba. And I chose to take 4 small pieces of advice from Hazrat Uthman, Ali, Umar, and Abu Bakr. So let's talk about them one by one, and I'm going to break them up a little bit for you. The first one is to make a purpose for life, then utilize all your strength to achieve it. You would be definitely successful. The second piece of advice is the nourishment of body is food, while the nourishment of the soul is feeding others. That should say 3. The third one is trust is that there should be no difference between what you do, what you say, and what you think. And the fourth piece of advice says, he who avoids complaining invites happiness. So let's break these down a little bit and talk about what on earth this has to do with building our identities as American Muslims. So the very first thing that I want to talk about is defining your purpose and setting goals. Make a purpose for life. Make a purpose for life. This is so important. When we talk about making a purpose for life, I always go back to, and please look this up if you haven't seen this. I think you'll find it interesting and funny, at least I did. So there was a TV show, I'm sure you know, called Everybody Loves Raymond. And in this TV show, there was a part where one of the children asked the father and the mother and the grandparents, why are we here? Why did God create us? What is our purpose for living? And you see the adults in the room all just kind of stop, and they just start looking at each other. And then they get up and they run to the Bible and they pick up the Bible and they start shuffling through all the pages to try to find what is the purpose of their life. So you have to imagine that at that point, right, how interesting it is when we have our small children asking, like, why are we here? Why were we created? Why are we doing this? Why do I need to drink this water? Why do I have to eat food to survive, right? So we have to be able to answer this for ourselves. And so the very first thing that we have to do in order to make this possible is we have to create that connection between us and our Creator. We have to make a purpose for our lives. And the purpose for our life should be to serve and to worship God, right? We want to gain God's good pleasure so that when we are done on this earth, we can go to His grace and to His mercy, and He can welcome us into His heaven, into His paradise. And so if you are unsure of your purpose in life, it's going to be really hard for you to create and set and meet your goals if you don't have a reason for meeting them. And so imagine you're a child and you're going through school and you come to middle school. Why do I need to get good grades in middle school? Well, maybe you want to get into a specific high school. Okay, I got into high school. What am I doing now? I'm working to get really good grades and a high GPA. I'm taking AP courses. I'm taking extra classes throughout the summer. I'm doing these things. So for what? So I can get into a really good college or university. Great. You're in a really good college or a really good university. You study really hard and you do everything that you can to get really good grades so that you can graduate and get a good job. Okay, great. Then what happens? Well, you make money. Wonderful, you make money. What are you going to do with that money? More importantly, right? What will you do if one day that money runs out? What will you do if you invested all of your money into a specific product and it doesn't work and you lose all of your money? Right? What are you going to do when the coronavirus hits and you have to stop working? It's not funny, but we have to find laughter, right? So when you have a purpose, right? My purpose in life, I can say this very comfortably. My purpose in life is to be in education. My purpose in life is to serve my Creator. And the goals that I do and the strength that I use within myself, I have to use it to meet that goal. And so as I'm making my plan for my life, as I'm making my plan for my day right now, I have to fall back on that as my foundation to get me through, as my foundation to help me build what I want as a person, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as an aunt, as a cousin. All of these things are so me, right? But they all go back to my main purpose and my main goal, which is to serve my Creator. So let's talk about this a little bit now. Talk to you about it from the religious side. I want to use religion now to justify some science, right? So it says that the capacity of psychological resilience is viewed by many psychologists as being from amongst the most important predictors of psychological well-being and quality of life. A 2014 study published in Psychological Science reported that having a purpose in life allowed individuals to live longer. Individuals it allows you to be more dedicated to your loved ones, to your community, and it allows you to handle the ups and downs of life more effectively. Influential psychologist Albert Bandura coined the term self-efficacy to describe our self-confidence and belief in our own abilities to execute a certain task. And lastly, remember the importance of setting goals is well established. Aimless wandering or vague ideas are no replacement for specific goals and have been shown to be less influential in bringing about success. Again, so I was using religion to justify science rather than using science to justify religion, right? So we know these things are true. Science backs it up. You need to have a purpose and you need to set goals for yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I think I ever got about setting goals for myself came from a dear friend of mine. And she said, this was right when I was really struggling I was really struggling with my prayers, right? And having this feeling to want to pray and to run to my prayer rug and want to be in the presence of my Creator all the time. I was yearning for a feeling like that. And because I wasn't getting it, I was afraid that I was doing something wrong, or, I was a horrible Muslim, or so many things were coming to my mind and I didn't know what to do. And, she kind of sat me down and she listened and she said, when you're setting goals for yourself, it's important that you're setting reasonable goals for yourself. And when I asked her exactly what she meant by that, she said, if you're not able to pray 5 times a day right now, and it doesn't happen any day ever, set a goal for yourself where you start with 2 prayers a day, 3 prayers a day, 4 prayers a day, and work yourself up so that you're achieving your goals that you've set. And then you're also working towards this purpose that you set for yourself to build this relationship between you and the Creator. And I kind of took that piece of advice and made it work in every part of my life, right? Whether I was studying or I was, working, or whatever the goal I happened to have, small pieces and working towards them seemed to work the best. Okay, so the first thing that we're doing to try to find our identities, right, is we are defining our purpose and we're setting goals for ourselves. Why are you here and why does it matter? The second piece to it is serving humanity, service to humanity. So Hazrat Ali said, the nourishment of body is food. The nourishment of the soul is feeding others. We know, I'm sure you've read that science has found that giving help to others allows us to reap our own benefits, whether you're talking about it curing depression. I don't want to say curing depression, helping with depression or anxiety or mental illness. It can help with that. But they've also found that it also gives cognitive benefits. So you actually grow your brain by volunteering and serving and helping others. How? Because it reduces stress levels. It gives you a greater sense of reward, an internal reward, and it creates an overall sense of well-being. Why is this important? When you have a purpose in life and you've set goals for your purpose, right? Purpose in life is to know and to worship God, the Creator. And the goals that I'm going to do in order to do that are specific to every person. But in order for you to be able to really learn and understand yourself, you need to get out in the community and you need to see the way other people are living. So when we're talking about service to humanity, this can mean many things. You can be volunteering in soup kitchens. You can be donating food to somebody you see homeless on the streets. It could be giving, right now people are having a hard time finding like toilet paper and cleaning wipes and different things like that. So it could even be giving those to people that you see on the street, right? You can serve humanity in so many different ways, especially the youth. especially the youth. There are so many things that you can do to serve humanity when you are in your university campuses, when you're in high school. I've seen children as young as elementary school, 2nd and 3rd grade, come up with full-blown like business plans to try to help somebody when they see that they need help, right? The need to want to help somebody that we see needs help, that kind of comes naturally to us. And if it doesn't come naturally to us, I believe that falls back on having a lack of sense of purpose and a lack of goals that you're setting for yourself. And so one of the best things we can do to find ourselves is to help others. I think it was Gandhi that said, lose yourself, or to find yourself, lose yourself in helping others, something along those lines. I don't have the exact quote with me, but we have to be in public and helping people and getting out there. And when we're talking about serving others, it can come in so many different forms. That's the most wonderful thing about it, right? Everybody has different needs, and there are many things you can do. Something as simple as carrying groceries for somebody that you see struggling outside. These can all be things that help you find your identity. Why? Because you have a purpose, right? Your purpose is to know and worship your Creator, and you are doing things in your daily life to achieve that goal. As an American Muslim, I think we have a larger responsibility to show this side of us to other people. Just because of all the negative, and incorrect news that there is out there about American Muslims or Muslims in general. Okay, so first step, set your purpose, set some goals, know your purpose and set some goals. Second step is you're going to serve humanity, and there are many different ways that you can do that. The third one, and I think this is really important, to act on your beliefs and your convictions. I want to talk to you guys about something called cognitive dissonance, and I know that you probably already know what this is, but cognitive dissonance is a tension that occurs when we hold two conflicting thoughts at the same time. So this is the example that I give in the presentation here is somebody who is smoking, but they know that they need to quit, right? But yet they keep smoking. They know it's harmful. They know that it could give them cancer. They know that there are so many things wrong with smoking, yet they keep doing it. And an important thing for us is that we have the ability to create such clarity, right, as Muslims, to know that there should be no difference between what we do and what we say and what we think. And this isn't easy. I think this is probably the hardest part, at least for me, when I was first starting my journey into developing and finding my own identity was, am I doing things and saying things just because somebody that I saw and somebody that I love so much told me to do them and say them? Or am I doing it because I have acted on my beliefs and my own convictions and I believe it, and that's why I'm doing it, right? So when we're thinking about perhaps a way that would be the most comprehensive when we're talking about, bringing our behaviors in line with the way that we're thinking, doesn't it make sense that we're going to have a healthier thought process when our thoughts are derived or our thoughts land in a purpose that we've already created for ourselves, right? So at that point, when we have a clear purpose, it makes sense that our beliefs and our thoughts, our actions and our words are going to match with that foundation that we've set for ourselves already. I mean, that just makes more sense than if I have no beliefs whatsoever and I'm just kind of going by things at a whim every day. Think about how that wouldn't make sense as a university student. If you are designing your classes for the semester and you don't have a plan of what you need to have studied by a certain time in order to apply for your major or in order to graduate, right? And you're just taking whatever class you happen to feel like taking that day, that wouldn't make sense because you have a plan and you have a goal and something that you're trying to work towards. And so if you take this into the same understanding of building an identity for yourself, it's the same thing. I am an American Muslim, right? There's no denying that. I'm American and I'm Muslim, and I can be both at the same time. Why can I be both at the same time? Because my goal for being here is to know and worship my Creator. Can I know and worship my Creator in my home? Yes. Can I know and worship my Creator when I'm at work? Yes. Can I know and worship my Creator when I am, praying on my prayer rug? Yes. Can I know and worship my Creator if I'm not following the guidelines that my Creator put out for me? That's a question mark, right? And so we have to understand that we are building a foundation that is going to take us to the highest, we hope, right? Levels of clarity and inner peace and tranquility and happiness. But we need to have our foundation. We need to have our purpose and our goals set first. And when we do that, we can serve others, and then we can act. Our actions and our thoughts and our words become part of that because we've believed it for ourselves. We've learned and we've read and we've built that connection for ourselves rather than just relying on what somebody else tells us that we should do. And I think that is one of the most important things. I mean, even in the Quran, right, it says that you should read and you should know and you should question and you should ask. I mean, this is really important. Read, right? And we have to question and we have to ask. We have to know. We have to be able to, trust in our beliefs and in our convictions so much that our thoughts and our words and our actions aren't different, right? This is not easy, and that's okay. It's part of life. It's part of building that process. Okay, invite happiness. This is one of my favorite pieces, right? So we're talking about building an identity for ourselves, right? So we're setting goals and we know our purpose and we're serving others. We're serving others in the community. We're helping those less fortunate. And we are reading and learning and knowing and doing our best to know and worship our Creator, right? So let's talk about inviting happiness because this is really important too. I don't know about you guys, but I've come across some people, let's say, in my life who we call them the Haram Police, right? So they, you might see them standing somewhere and they see something they don't like and they're like, oh, it's haram. Or they see somebody, I don't know, eating something that they shouldn't. Oh, that's haram. Or they're doing something that they shouldn't. That's haram. That's haram. That's haram, right? We call them the Haram Police. Okay, right. Everybody has good intentions, I'm sure. But we need to be able to invite happiness into our lives. And how can we do that? By reframing the way that we think about complaints or other people or things like that. Now, one personal rule that I've always set for myself is, I can't control what other people say. I can't control what other people do. I can only control my reactions to their thoughts and their words and their actions. But this isn't easy. So this is something that I work on still. I tend to be a perfectionist. And so I know that this is something that I have to learn how to do even better for myself. But I think that's part of finding your identity, right? Is sharing things that you struggle with. and so that other people can see that everybody has things that are difficult for them to overcome. But I want to talk about the importance of our thoughts. So the more we think a thought, the more likely and easy it is that those thoughts occur to us again. Indulging in complaining increases the likelihood that we will complain again in the future, eventually becoming something habitual. We can literally rewire our brains to be more predisposed to complaining. So it's like, sometimes you just know, like, if there's somebody who complains a lot and you're like, oh yeah, I really don't like being around this person because they just bring down my entire aura, right? I just don't like being around complaints and I just don't want to hear it. So I just avoid that situation completely. And let's think about this in the reverse too. You might not like something, you might not like someone, but when you are approached to speak about them or talk about them or have a conversation with them or be put in a meeting or room with that person, where does your mind go, right? Where does my mind go at that moment? Do I automatically start assuming that they're going to say bad things or that they're going to say things that annoy me? Or there are so many ways that you can look at this. It's like the, what is that? People say like, oh, so-and-so never does that anyway, right? So-and-so always comes late. So I might as well just go an hour late too, because they always come late anyway. Well, I can't control that about another person, but I certainly can control that about myself. But there's a more important meaning behind inviting happiness into your life. And when you look at Eastern philosophy highlights specifically the harms of complaining by way of the underlying thought behind a complaint. So what is the underlying thought behind a complaint? A refusal to accept things being the way they are, right? I think I've said this probably 50 times. I'm going to say it again. What is the purpose in life? To know and worship our Creator, okay? If you're always complaining, if I'm always complaining about the life and the environment that my Creator put me in, how good of a believer am I being at that moment, right? That should leave like a question mark in my mind. A refusal to accept things being the way they are, God forbid, could be a refusal for me to accept the things that the Almighty, that the Creator has given to me in a way that the Creator has decided I need to have it. This should be something that we think about when we're complaining. I'm telling this to myself first. Remember, I started out this portion of the talk by saying this is something I struggle with. So I want to talk to you guys about something called the mirroring of neurons. And basically what that means is our brains tend to try out the emotions that are being experienced by those around us. And so as a Muslim, I know that as an American Muslim, I know it's really important for me to surround myself with other practicing American Muslims. And the reason that is so important for me, and they don't just have to be American, right? They can be Muslim, but for me, I need that connection with somebody who understands, who gets it, so to speak. But your brain literally mirrors the emotions that are experienced by the people around us. That's why when you're watching like a sad movie, you could start crying. If you are, it's always funny when I was younger, my parents still talk about this. if we were watching a movie that had any sort of violence in it, it's a movie, right? We know that it's fake. Nobody's actually getting hurt. I would complain to my parents that my arms were hurting, right? My arms were hurting when somebody in the movie was fighting or hitting or something bad was happening, to the point where I couldn't watch movies because I would literally start getting pains in my arms. It would literally start to hurt. And so there is this phenomenon that our brains, they start to try out the emotions that are being experienced by those around us. Building a community of happiness around you is so, so, so important. It is so important. You have to build a group of people around you that uplift you. You have to build a group of people around you that bring you closer to your purpose in life and bring you closer to the goals that you have set for yourself. And it is so important that everybody has that friend that they go to when they're having a bad day, right? Oh, this person always makes me feel better. Let me call them right away and let me get them on the phone. They always make me feel better. Or, right, it could be the opposite. You see somebody's name pop up and you're like, oh, is she going to call and complain again about something? Right? We all do it, I'm sure. But that's the point, right? We need to invite happiness. We need to invite happiness. When you invite happiness, people are going to come around you and they're going to want to be around you. And one of the easiest ways to invite happiness is just to avoid complaining. That doesn't mean you're not going to work to make things better. We all should work to make things better. But there is a difference between working towards a common goal and complaining just to complain. So I want to give you guys like 4 key points that I think are really useful when you're talking about taking your identity and trying to be a role model, so to speak, for other people around you. And so the first thing that I always tell people is find yourself by helping others find their way. Serve humanity. Serve humanity. Serve humanity. The second thing is show people your human side in a way that is permissible. The end goal is not to be like your role models, but it's to be like the prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him. Recognize when a person needs a lecture and when a person needs a shoulder to cry on, because our faith is shaken most when we're going through hardship. And the goal is to make you love yourself. There is a hadith, let not one of you belittle himself, right? I mean, that means that we have to do good and we have to work hard and we have to call out wrong when we see it. But it's because we love ourselves so much and we've set such a strong purpose to know and to worship our creators in our lives that we don't want to lose this foundation. We don't want to lose how far we've come, right? And so love yourself enough to know your purpose, to know your goals, and to work towards them. And love yourself enough to know when you're going through a hard time that it's okay and you're going to be able to overcome it by focusing on the people that you're putting around you. And again, by serving humanity. I can't say that enough. It does you so much good in so many ways to serve the people around you. I want to read this quote and then I will open it up for any questions that you might have. This is from Yasmin Mogahed. And it says, as much as you can, keep dunya, keep worldly life in your hand, not in your heart. That means when someone insults you, keep it out of your heart so it doesn't make you bitter or defensive. When someone praises you, keep it out of your heart so it doesn't make you arrogant and self-deluded. When you face hardship and stress, Don't absorb it in your heart so you don't become hopeless and overwhelmed. Instead, keep it in your hands and realize that everything passes. When you're given a gift by God, don't hold it in your heart. Hold it in your hand so that you don't begin to love the gift more than the giver. And so that when it is taken away, you can truly respond with Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Indeed, we belong to God, and to God we return. And with that, I would like to open it to anybody that has any questions or anything that they want to share. I think, Siraj, you were going to help with that?
Yes, thanks, Ms. Lyndsey, for such an eye-opening and informative presentation. And we thank on behalf of organizers and participants at the same time. So we received some questions regarding integration of our identities into American society. Mm-hmm. So I'll just read out a question to you. So we usually feel timid or shy about being spotted out or pointed out while we pray in public places in circumstance that's necessary. Mm-hmm. How would a regular American view us doing so? Mm-hmm. So this is one of the questions.
So a regular American, right? I'm talking about the people who aren't bigoted or racist or anything. Believe that people should be able to pray to whom they want to pray to, when they want to pray to, how and where they want to pray to them. And so a regular person is not going to feel any sort of way about seeing somebody pray. I think sometimes we feel that they do because maybe they watch you while you pray and it might feel uncomfortable, but remember, they may have never seen a Muslim pray before. They may have never seen, any sort of Muslim prayer outside of the movies that they might be watching. And unfortunately, most of those times that they're not showing people who are very good in those movies, right? So I encourage people to pray. If you're more comfortable praying in private, in the privacy of your own home or something, that is great too. But don't assume that people are watching you because they think that you're doing something wrong. They just might have never seen it before.
So with that, I think we have time to ask another question. Mm-hmm. So another question we received from our viewers is that how can we protect ourselves as Muslim Americans in such a diverse culture?
Yeah, that's really important. So, you have to know your purpose, right? You have to know why it's important to protect your Muslim identity in another culture. I think a lot of times we try to rely on just our cultural beliefs when it comes to why you should do something. For example, growing up, my mother always said to me, I'm sure this has been told to many people too, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, right? Mm-hmm. That is just a cultural thing. It might have religious backgrounds to it. It might not. I don't know. And I think sometimes taking even something as simple as that, we might rely on the cultural significance, right? Well, my mom told me I need to be nice to people, so I should just be nice to people. But I think it goes back to really knowing and understanding your purpose in life. And so you have to understand that there is a balance between fitting in and doing right by your creator. And if I can kind of go back to this quote here, it's keeping the worldly life in your hand and not in your heart. It's not easy to make that balance, especially when you're in high school and in college. It's not easy. you might feel left out. You might feel, that people don't want to be your friend or get very close with you or other things like that. But I am here to tell you that the people who matter will. And so the people who are meant to be in your life are going to accept you for who you are, all of you. And anybody who doesn't accept you for who you are, they are not worth your time. But I think it all just boils down to really knowing your purpose in life, and just knowing why you're not able to do some of the things that maybe some of the other people around you are doing, whether it's going out partying or anything else.
Thanks, Ms. Lyndsey. So I think we have a few more minutes to ask another question. So I think it will be the last, if not, the last. What if there isn't a Muslim around us to influence us in positive ways, but there is a friend that's a non-Muslim but good? And so I'll add up another question. Would you see any contradiction between these two notions?
Absolutely not. There is, in my opinion, right? Just because you're Muslim doesn't mean that you're good, right? And just because you're not Muslim doesn't mean you're not good. So I have half of my family who are not Muslims, but they are very good people. And I have learned so much from getting to know them, and how they treat other family members and how they treat the people around them, that they have probably lent me closer to finding my purpose than some of the Muslim people that I've met in my life. With that being said, I think it's important that we do our best to search for the people that are going to be the best for us in the long run. And I know it might seem sometimes like there are no good Muslims around us. I know it can feel like that, but trust me, they're out there. And I think that we have to allow ourselves to be open to exploring different places. I'm just going to give an example of when I was in high school. I still regret this day so much, but I'm going to share it to hopefully make some people understand my point a little better. So I was in high school, probably my sophomore or my junior year, and we were invited to a family's home for iftar during Ramadan. I don't remember what caused me to be in whatever type of mood I was in, but for whatever reason, I didn't want to get out of the car to go into this family's home. It was so rude of me. But I spent that night, the entire iftar, sitting in my mother's car, refusing to get out and to go into this family's home. And I wound up sitting in the car with a plate of food that the grandmother of this family brought out to me. She didn't speak a word of English. And she came out, brought me a plate of food. Soon behind her came some uncles and some aunts and some brothers and some sisters and all of a sudden I had like a group of people standing around me in my car because I was being too selfish to get out of the car and come into these people's homes that invited me over. Again, I don't remember why I did what I did. I just remember the feeling of regret that I have now. I'm sure that it revolved around some false belief that I wouldn't like them or I wouldn't like the food, or I don't know. I really don't know. I was probably just being a snot. But when I finally got out of the car, the next time we came, again, I stayed in my car the entire time. I can't even believe it when I think about it. But the next time we went over, I got out of the car and I went into the house and I met a girl named Aisha. And Aisha and I grew to be the best of friends. She was, a year older than me. but a physical year older than me, but light years ahead of me in terms of maturity and just her convictions in life and what she knew she wanted to do. But had you asked me up until the day that I met her, if I was going to be able to find somebody that I considered to be worthy of, my time, not worthy of my time, that's a wrong way to put it, but somebody who was like a really good Muslim that I really wanted to kind of open my heart to and my friendship to. I probably would have said, no, I prefer my other friends. I've known them my entire life, and I'm happy to stay with them, which is okay too, right? I can be friends with them as long as they lead me to good. They don't lead me to bad things. But the good Muslims, they are out there. And I think if we're not finding them in our immediate circle, we should broaden our circle and try to meet other people. And maybe give some people that we wrote off a second or third chance, because you never know what, it could be me sitting in my car refusing to go and talk to people. Or, you could make and build a lifelong friendship with somebody that you didn't know would be such a good friend.
So, Ms. Lyndsey, thank you. And I just want to take the last question. That has two parts, actually, that may also relate to your personal experience or reflections. So the first part is, how can we convince ourselves to pray more? Mm-hmm. And the second part of the question is, it also kind of relates to our social life. How can we approach a non-Muslim American correctly when it comes to explaining about our religion or talk about our religion? And would you suggest some steps that we should consider when approaching them? Thank you.
Sure. So, okay, for praying more, I think I definitely don't have like the final be-all answer for this. I don't want to pretend that I do. One thing that I know for sure, 100%, I know this for sure. When I'm focusing on my prayers, stress becomes easier for me to handle. When I'm focused on my intentions throughout my prayers, I know that the ups and downs that come in my daily life are easier for me to handle. I know that when I'm focusing on my prayers, that I'm more at peace with myself. I just feel an overall sense of security that wasn't there when I wasn't focusing on my prayers. With that being said, right, there are always going to be struggles. I think as Muslims, as practicing Muslims, Shaitan is always going to try to convince us that we don't need these prayers, right? Or one thing that used to always happen to me when I first started praying is I would take wudu and get ready to pray. And all of a sudden I would start getting thoughts in my head like, oh, you didn't take wudu. You can't be praying right now. You didn't take wudu, even though I just literally walked out of the bathroom and was getting ready to pray, right? So we know that there are going to be struggles, or, it's the middle of a work day. I don't have time. I'm going to pray in 10 minutes. I'm going to pray in 20 minutes. Or, I really just, I hate taking wudu in the public restrooms. I'm going to wait and I'm going to pray when I get home. And these are all thoughts that can come to everybody's head. So my advice, right, is build your day around your prayers. So instead of building your prayers around your day, build your day around your prayers. So that can be setting alarms on your phone, which is what I do. I set alarms to try to make myself pray at a certain time during the workday. I mean, now that we're all kind of at home, it's a little bit easier for us to, pray whenever we want to. But during the workday. There were certain times every day that I prayed, and I would set my alarm within the appropriate times. And it was just my cue, like my little knock from my Creator to get ready to pray. And it was things like that. Building my day around my prayers, I think, is what made the biggest difference for me. Rather as just fitting my prayers in when I could, I would just make sure that I was building my day around my ability to pray. That was the biggest thing for me physically, to be able to do it. But there's a saying that I tell people all the time: fake it till you make it, right? People laugh when I say that, but I mean it. So I didn't, and I don't think anybody was born and then all of a sudden was just like, oh yes, when I'm in prayer, I'm in full concentration all the time. I never think of anything else. My intentions are always on point. I'm always doing everything, the best way ever. I have the best spiritual feelings when I'm praying. It's amazing. I can't believe anybody goes through life without feeling this. Yeah, I hope one day that I get to that point. And I hope one day that, God gives me the grace to be able to say that that's exactly how I feel every single time I pray. But when it's not, I fake it till I make it. And then I just do my best to try to fix anything within myself that may be stopping me from getting those feelings. But building my day around my prayers and just going into every prayer with the best of intentions to try to pray in the best way that I can possible were really the things that helped me the most in my life. And the second part of that question was, how can we talk to our non-Muslim friends or family or colleagues or whoever it is that we meet about Islam? So the first thing that I want to say, rather than explaining things through your words, I've always found that it's more, it makes a bigger influence when you allow people to see things through your actions. So just as an example, when one time I had a neighbor who was really old, and I noticed that, I never saw any family coming and going to her home. And then one day I just saw her outside and she was carrying groceries in, and I asked her if I could help her carry her groceries. And then I helped her carry the groceries, and then we went inside her house, sat down. She offered me some tea and things. And so we were just sitting and talking, and she goes, I've been living in this, apartment for many, many years, and I've had many neighbors, and nobody ever asked me if if I needed help carrying my groceries. And my reply was just my faith teaches me to serve humanity, and I saw that you needed some help at the moment, and so I wanted to help you. At that point, I could have been I'm a Muslim, and she did know I was Muslim. That wasn't something that I was hiding from her. But I could have approached it by trying to convince her to also become Muslim, because Muslims are great and we're wonderful and we do everything right and we're perfect all the time, right? No, but it was just a moment for her to see through my actions, right? I'm living my faith through my actions, that's just something you should do for somebody who needs help. And I think that allowing people to see things through your actions, it's going to lead them to ask you questions. When people ask me questions, I answer their questions, but I try not to. I'm talking a lot with you guys tonight, but generally I try not to go forever when we're talking. I just answer their questions. And then I'll usually respond with, and what does your faith teach about that? Because it opens a dialogue back and forth. And trust me, allowing people to share their faith with you is going to bring you closer to your own faith, right? Because when we've taken the time to build that foundation, right, that purpose that I was talking about, when you see the glory and the mercy of that powerful creator, of that being, and the way that it's been spread to so many different people in different ways, one, it makes you appreciate your relationship with your creator much more. Two, it makes you happy to see that somebody else also works on a similar relationship and that it also makes them happy. And so I think people are going to ask you questions, and I think it's perfectly fine to answer them. Also be willing to learn about their faith and their culture and different things about them. If you want to invite them to your home, for example, to eat food, expect them to invite you to their home, and you should be willing to go. Let them know your dietary restrictions ahead of time. Things like that. So I think it's very normal for people to ask questions, and for them to ask questions about Islam in particular. Sign that you're capable and able to answer them, and God put them there for a reason. And so remember that when somebody's asking you a question, just remember to keep the two-way communication open, and try to show them your faith through your actions rather than only your words when possible.
So thank you, Ms. Lyndsey, for your efforts, for your time, and for the research. It was very eye-opening and informative. We also thank our viewers for their time, and let's see you soon on another occasion. Thank you so much for.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.